Got a lot to get to. The Jets are playing a playoff game Sunday afternoon at MetLife Stadium. They're playing for their dignity, they're playing for their playoff hopes, and they're playing for us to have a chance to see Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. The New York Giants have a huge weekend. We'll explain why coming up, and there's a lot of mystery surrounding Pete Alonso over the last few days that we need to explore. But last night, you probably sat back after you watched the Knicks take care of the Pistons and the Nets lose to the Hornets, and you watched football because that's what we do as Americans. Whether it's the Jets playing or the Giants playing, we watch football. And something happened last night that has happened almost every week throughout this football season that I find fascinating, and you should all find fascinating. We watched the game, and we were disgusted by what we were watching. In the case of last night, it was penalties. Sure, we saw a lot of points. And maybe you won your bet, maybe you lost your bet, but you probably bitched and moaned throughout the game concerning the gross amount of penalties that were thrown. You probably said to a friend of yours, hey, this game's unwatchable because all they're doing is throwing laundry. There have been other games in which you've watched no offense whatsoever. An ugly 12-10 game, we'll call that Monday night. And you complain about the product. We all do. I've heard more complaints about the product of the NFL this season than ever before. And yet, with all of that said, the NFL's TV ratings are through the roof. And so it leads me to ask this question to every single person listening, to the great Tiki Barber, and I'll try to answer it myself. If we all admit the product is completely atrocious, and we complain about it every single week, why do we continue to watch, and what would be the actual thing that makes us stop watching?
It is football. That's why we watch it, Evan. It feels like it's special. It feels like it's something that we can't live without. That's why we watch it. That's why we put up with the mediocrity. That's why we put up with the, we talk more in this game about the penalties. 257 yards of penalties. Evan, there have been some football games where teams didn't have 250 yards of offense. There were 257 yards in penalties.
Yeah.
Now look, it made it interesting, right? It was a barn burner. They scored 870 whatever points, 76 points, right? It felt like, wow, this is fun if you just watched it from afar. But if you looked at it and you looked at the details, it was borderline unwatchable despite how many points were scored. You can't say that about the NFL. I mean, hell, Evan, I think I need to do a Cinco de Tico.
A Cinco de Tico?
A Cinco de Tico. Seriously, there is not much that can make me not, to answer your question specifically, there's not much that can make me not want to watch the NFL.
Right, because before you continue, think about it. We saw no offense on Monday. We all complained about it. We still watched.
Yes.
We saw a game that was littered with penalties. It was starting to stop last night, and yet we still watched. So what in the world would make you stop watching if the unwatchable football of the last two primetime games hasn't caused it yet?
Yeah, well, there are some things that So I played the game forever, right? My entire life, I played football. I loved it. I loved being a part of it. I loved the camaraderie. I loved the teamwork. I love all of that stuff. And then when I retired, I loved following it and covering it, being a part of what the NFL was all about. But I got to tell you, over the last 2 years, things have just started to get a little bit, out of whack, you could say, with the NFL. I feel like more and more of us, including me, and it was never me, are complaining about the referees and complaining about the officials. Hell, the game I did a week ago, which was the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans, Evan Ingram gets held. Trevor Lawrence throws an interception. And on the very next drive, I swear in my mind I was saying the referees are giving the Jaguars a touchdown back. They're giving it back to them. Right? They're trying to find a way to make this thing equal. And I almost said it. I was like, dude, is this a makeup call? Right? I think I actually did say it on the broadcast. Is this a makeup call? And it felt like they were doing makeup calls. And that's not good for the NFL. It's not good for the game. It's frustrating for me as I don't want to say call myself a purist because I'm not, But it is frustrating when I see all of these things going on over and over and over again. And so with that being said, I had to, in the vein of Sean Marash's Cinco de Fivos and Evan Roberts' Cinco de Evos.
Yes.
I got to do a Cinco de Tico.
Number 5.
De Tico for the first time ever on a Football Friday.
This is when I stop watching football.
All right, number
You ready?
5. Let's go.
Number
5.
QB play continues to suck. I know that we talk about all of these young quarterbacks. They're just learning. But, man, when it's so bad you can't watch it, that's going to get me to turn it off eventually.
And it hasn't happened yet, which is crazy.
It hasn't quite happened yet.
Because the quarterback play in the NFL this year has been atrocious.
It's getting close.
All right, number 4.
Number 4.
It becomes so soft, like powder puff. You remember, maybe it was 2 months ago, you said the NFL is heading towards flag football.
Yes.
You
I
remember that,
I
Evan?
do believe that. I believe it will be a slow burn. You won't notice it overnight, but when we wake up in 35 years, we will literally be watching flag football.
Evan, if the game ever gets so soft that you can play it, I'm not watching. I'm not.
And I can play it.
Right? Being physically tough used to be a qualifier for playing this game. Anybody could go play flag football.
Right.
Hell, anybody could play some of these other sports that don't require you to take a beating and keep on ticking, right? It is hard to play football. If it gets so soft that anybody can do it just because you're a good athlete, I don't want to watch that. I mean, they've already legislated out hitting for wide receivers and quarterbacks. I don't want to see that anymore.
It's funny. The first two things you said are on its way to happening.
That's right.
And you could argue to some, it's already happened.
Yes.
But it hasn't happened enough yet for you to say, I am not wasting my time on a Thursday night watching this game because it's happened too much.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to number 3.
Number 3.
Evan, what's your favorite sport?
My favorite sport of all time is still baseball. It's a first love.
Oh, okay, outside of baseball.
Football.
Non-sport. Okay, what's your favorite non-sport?
Professional wrestling.
There it is. I just had to figure out a way to get you to say professional wrestling.
Ask me what I'm doing tonight. Professional wrestling.
Right? If football ever becomes not real, that it's scripted, we always used to say the NFL is the best form of reality television. You have no idea what's actually going to happen. Right? Anything could happen. The amazing could happen. Right? The butt fumble could happen. The miracle at the Meadowlands could happen. Any of that stuff could happen. If it ever gets to the point where it feels not real and it's scripted, it's entertainment for entertainment purposes, I am not watching it.
Interesting. Yeah, we've talked about that concern over gambling and over people losing faith in the institution of football. But I can understand that if it's ever the WWE, as much as I love it, I go in knowing it's fixed. I go in knowing it's scripted. We can't have that. All right, number 2.
Number 2.
It becomes ubiquitous, meaning it's all the time. It's like baseball. You can watch baseball on a Monday. You can watch baseball on a Tuesday. I don't know, Wednesday and a Thursday, Friday, hell, Saturdays. You can sometimes watch double headers. It's every damn day, right? If football ever becomes every single day of the week, and college did this to themselves, they crushed themselves putting Mountain West games on Tuesday afternoons. It's like, dude, I don't want to watch that crap. I need to wait for the weekend. I know how it takes to regenerate a football player. You're going to play 2 days after you just finished getting your butt beat by Clemson? No, I don't want to watch football every day of the week. I like the Black Friday game, I guess. Not really, because the Jets played terribly. But I don't want to watch football every day. So don't make it every day. That'll make me stop watching.
Wow.
Or I'll just forget that it's on.
All right, the number 1 in the first ever Cinco de Tico.
Number 1.
In the vein of 257 yards and penalties last night on Thursday Night Football, incompetence. If it gets to the point where all I'm talking about, because that's all we're going to talk about today, is the penalties and not the actual excellence of a football game, the skill that these quarterbacks and running backs and offensive linemen and D tackles and cornerbacks and hell, even head coaches sometimes put into putting a game plan together and combating and battling each other head to head. If I'm not talking about that and I'm talking about referee incompetence, I'm not watching the game anymore.
Interesting. It's a very interesting list, and I listen to every word you had to say. And I've thought about this all night after watching that game last night because I wanted to say, hey, this is the thing for me that would make me stop watching football. As much as we complain about the officials and the bad quarterback play and the softness of the sport, and you bring up a really interesting point we'll get to a little bit more into the ubiquitous
Yes.
of football being every single day. I'm going to tell you the truth. And I think I represent most of the people listening right now.
Yes.
We're a bunch of sheep. We'll never stop watching. That's the truth.
Probably right.
That's the truth.
You're right, but I had to do the list. I had to try.
We will never, ever stop watching. Last night, and I was annoyed last night. I'm not going to spend much time on it, but I was annoyed by a basketball result last night. And then my focus was laser on Dallas-Seattle. It has playoff implications for the Giants. More on that later. It has draft pick implications for the Giants. And it's football. And it's Thursday night. And the Cowboys are trying to win the NFC East. And it's the Cowboys. And as I watched it, and as I got annoyed with the officiating, and I was annoyed, I realized that it's still football. And as soft as the sport has become, what I said to you a few weeks ago, to get back to it becoming flag football, is that the softness of the sport occurs over such a slow period of time. It's not as if they're going to announce tomorrow this is flag football. They're just going to continue to make it softer slowly but surely year after year. And I hate to get dark about this. It's like the death of our democracy. It doesn't happen overnight. We're not going to be overthrown one day. It's just going to be very, very, very slow. And then when you wake up, you're going to say everything's changed. And you know how I know this? You know what the proof of this is?
What is it?
I love the NBA, and I love Major League Baseball. They are so different than what they were 20 years ago. They're different in so many ways. And yet, I love it. I've accepted that they're different. I can argue, hey, I prefer this better, or I prefer that better, or I miss this, or I miss that. But at the end of the day, football is just so in the blood of us as Americans that they can continue to F this sport up as much as they want. Most of us, can't say all of us, but most of us will continue to watch because we are sheep for the NFL.
You know what, Evan? You're probably right. But it's getting to the point where I had to address this. I had to talk about the things that have been bothering me in the NFL. And I know Tom Brady said it, and he's not all right about the mediocrity. But there's just things that have changed, and I don't think it's all for the good. I used to remember wide receivers used to have to be big. Right? They go across the middle. They take a shot. It's like, dude, he's not getting up from that. Right? And guess what? He'd get up.
Yeah.
Or sometimes he wouldn't. But it was like, man, that's a man, dude. It takes a man to do that. Nowadays, speed is the only thing that matters if you're a wide receiver. How fast are you? Look at the Tyreek Hills of the world, the Jalen Waddles, the Mims, the kid from Denver. There's a ton of them. Jalen Hyatt from the New York Giants. Speed is the thing that matters. And at the expense of toughness for some of these guys. And it frustrates me because even 15 years ago, 17 years ago when I was playing, it was about toughness, right? I used to watch Amani Toomer block, a safety 15 yards downfield. I'm doing the Colts this week. Alec Pierce is a wide receiver for the Colts. He doesn't want to block anybody. He's just running. I'm serious. He's just not young enough to figure it out. He's just running around. A big play could happen. Zach Moss could have gone for a 70-yard touchdown, but he's screwing around with the corner, basically brother-in-law, and like, hey, what are you doing for dinner tonight? And then the kid makes a tackle. Right? Stuff like that frustrates me.
I get you.
Right? The inability for young quarterbacks to do the simplest things. Right? We see it every week with Zach Wilson, or we did before he got benched. We saw it every week with Zach Wilson. Right? It shouldn't take you 3 years to figure out how to be a competent NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
And so all of these little things, they needle at me. They bother me. I love the game. I call the game, but it's changed, Evan. And just like baseball changed and basketball changed, the things that are happening in the NFL are changing, and it's not for the good.